Everyone, and welcome to another year of Tim Talks Music. I'm Tim Butler, and today we've got another special interview for you. This past summer, I had the pleasure of interviewing punk and power pop legend Bob Mould. Bob was in many influential bands such as Husker Du and Sugar. Bob has also influenced many popular musicians such as Green Day, Nirvana, and the Foo Fighters. So, I hope you enjoy my interview with Bob Mould. All right, well, first off, congratulations on your new album, Here We Go Crazy. I absolutely loved it. It's very good. I saw you in Philly at Union Transfer with your band.
Wow, that was a great show.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And do you have any special moments from the tour that you'd like to share?
Well, I think the highlight for the three of us, me, Jason, and John, was putting together a set list that was nothing but the 6 albums that we made together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the crowd really enjoyed that. I mean, it was maybe less hits than a normal show, like solo shows. But yeah, I mean, we had a blast. I think the wildest gig was at a venue called Codfish Hollow Barn, and it was a very, very old hay baling barn in rural Iowa, where people had to park like a mile away and take like sort of, hippie style shuttle buses from the parking lot to the barn. And there was the MC was, he was louder without PA than I think the band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like he was just sort of like almost like a auctioneer. Like this. And I was like, oh my God, this is wild. So that one was the most unique show, I think, of the trip. I mean, we had a lot of great shows, Philly included, and quick shout out to Russo Music. They always dial my guitars in just right whenever I go through Philly, so thanks for that again.
And what was your approach to writing and producing this album? And did it differ from any of your other albums?
It was a very slow process. Over the past 5 years, I think all of us have gotten knocked a little off course and trying to find our way back. And when I was able to get back to work in late 21 and then 22, 23, 24, I was sort of catching up from lost work time. So I wasn't writing as much as focused as normal for a record where, the typical thing is I write, we record, I do press, we tour, and then it starts over. This time, with Blue Hearts, the cycle got so knocked out of whack. But I think content-wise, this is the most stripped down of the 6 records that we've made together as a band. Typically, I do a lot more pre-production, more elaborate demos, and I figure out the ornamentation. This time, I just, was writing songs, and John and Jason were like, do you have something for us yet? I'm like, not yet. About a month out, they're like, do you have anything yet? I'm like, no. A week from recording, I sent them like skeletal demos, and they're like, oh yeah, we know these songs already. So they're very familiar sounding songs. They're very stripped down. With Blue Hearts in 2020, it was a very political record. I think with Here We Go Crazy, this album, a little less about the politics. I mean, there's some in there if you look for it, but it's not as over the head hammer kind of politics as the previous. So those are the big differences to me.
So my first introduction to you was when I heard Copper Blue. I was in the car with my dad, and he put it on. And when I heard that, it changed my musical life.
Oh, gosh.
And it's now become my favorite album of all time.
Oh, thank you for that.
And Sugar is considered the poster child of power pop.
Mm-hmm.
What is power pop to you? And did you expect Copper Blue to become the iconic album that it is?
Power pop to me is I had a steady diet of what I consider power pop as a child. I was born in 1960, and in the mid 60s, late 60s, early 70s, my parents had bought like a mom and pop grocery store, and my dad, because he was buying stuff from the vending company in town, like tobacco and such, he also bought used jukebox singles. for me for like a penny a piece. So those were my toys as a kid.
Right.
It's like Beatles, Birds, Hollies, Who, Motown, everything. I mean, that was how I taught myself how to play and write music. And that era, I mean, such an amazing sort of golden era of American and British pop. So I think when I got together with David and Malcolm to rehearse the 30 songs that became Copper, Blue, and Beaster and assorted B-sides, a lot of the focus was on, sort of pop songwriting. And, an album that I cherish that is a similar kind of album, at least I think I was trying to copy it a little bit, was Cheap Trick in Color, the second album. It's just song after song after song, deep pop hooks. And did I think it would be, I never know with any of them. After I finished recording those 2 records, I sort of had a little bit of a nervous breakdown, and I sort of I stayed in bed for like a month. And if that's any indication of what makes like that kind of uncertainty in my mind, maybe that's, because it's going to go really well, and I'm just not sure, but maybe I'm sure. I'm never sure.
And I know one of the inspirations for you is Pete Shelley from the Buzzcocks.
Yep.
Like how big of an influence was he for you?
Pretty big. So in high school, I was listening to hard rock and heavy metal, and my friends were listening to Fleetwood Mac and pop stuff. And I heard the Ramones, and I heard the Sex Pistols, and then I heard the Buzzcocks, and the Ramones are very 60s surf pop kind of thing. The Pistols, a little more of the moment, bigger rock kind of sound at the end of the day, and the Buzzcocks just, that sort of the concise, super pop songwriting. And I think with Pete, the biggest thing I picked up that I saw in my writing that he was doing was gender neutral love songs. So, so for me as a young queer kid, writing in that, sort of gender neutral style, a love song's a love song. So that's, I guess, at the end of the day, what I learned from Pete's writing and from Steve's stuff as well in Buzzcocks. I was very fortunate to see them the first time they came to America. I think I was 18, yeah. And it was sort of life-changing show.
And I know you did a cover of I Don't Mind, I think back in 2019. How did that come about?
We were just, when we were recording Sunshine Rock, we were looking for, a couple covers to have as B-sides. Send Me a Postcard of the Shocking Blues song, and I Don't Mind Buzzcocks was the other choice. And the Shocking Blues song, it sounded so similar to a couple songs that were on Sunshine Rock. It seemed like, oh, that one makes sense. So.
And these punk bands that you loved, did you get your inspiration from those bands for your distortion? Because I know you've had multiple signature pedals made for you. What are the ingredients to your distortion?
Well, it's all the MXR Distortion Plus, the yellow box. I think Randy Rhoads used one. I used it. Who's the guitarist? Was it Ed Cooper, the guitar player from the Saints, an Australian band from the mid-late 70s? So we were the 3 that people always like, oh, that's the Distortion Plus. The pedals that you mentioned, the handmade pedals, it's a fellow named Tim who has a shop in Brisbane, Australia called Tim Guitars. And Tim loves those pedals, and he's a big fan of Ed from the Saints and a big fan of my stuff. So he set out to create a better Distortion Plus with better germanium chips and better circuits, and each iteration seems a little bit cooler than the last one. So maybe there'll be some new ones in the future.
And I think one song that really shows your distortion in a very unique way is Ego Override from Hubcap. How did you get that sound?
Well, it's big guitars, but that's a Roland D50 with some kind of like distorted string sound run through the distortion plus. So the melody of it itself is at least one, maybe two distortion pluses. It might have been two, one after the other, just full tilt with all that. Yeah.
And for you, how do you start writing songs? Is it the melody or is it the lyrics?
There's a number of ways that sometimes the hook will come to me. Sometimes I've got existing words that are not necessarily structured like 4-line verse or whatever. And, I think Workbook is a great example of just words on a page. I pick up a guitar and I find a riff, and then I just start singing the words that look right. So yeah, sometimes words first, sometimes melodies first. Sometimes it's that kind of, sort of random construction on the fly. And, the very rare occasion songs sort of show up fully formed. Usually those will be in dreams. So if I wake up in the morning and there's just like a fully formed song in my head, I have to I used to have to quick run to the cassette recorder and sort of get something down. Now it's just roll out of bed and hit the thing on your phone and do it that way. So.
And there's this music YouTube channel that considered you America's most underrated songwriter and someone who should be more of a household name. Who do you think should be more of a household name, and who do you think should be more well known?
Oh, in terms of songwriters? My bandmate Jason is a heck of a songwriter. He started writing young and had a number of bands and has written, acoustic music, written rock music, written for plays for the stage. So I mean, I think Jason, he gets a lot of recognition, but he could always, be nice if more people knew about Jason. Got another friend of mine that I made music with in 1998, a fellow named Michael Cerverus, who he was the lead for the original Broadway musical version of Tommy. Oh. So he's a stage person and a TV person. And Michael's he's a great musician. He has a band called Loose Cattle. It's more Americana than what he did with me and what I do, but it's Michael's a great a great musician as well. So he'd also be two guys that I've worked with that I could.
And one of the more unfortunate things about songwriters now is that AI has kind of started to take over in my generation, which is very unfortunate for creatives. What are your thoughts on AI, and do you see any value for any musicians and songwriters?
I think AI's got a long way to go before it replaces much of anything. If I believe what they tell me, and I live in San Francisco, so I hear it all around me. Sort of the hype. It's gonna be better than fresh air and cold water, and it's so scary. You have to let us control it. And I've been through a couple of these in San Francisco. In terms of creative stuff, I think there will be people like yourself and like me and music fans who want to relate to a single songwriter or a pair of songwriters who work together in a room telling stories and then bringing those to life. We're just sort of on the tail end of a decade plus of 7 songwriters, somebody writing the top line, somebody writing this and that. And for me, a song is a song, but when I listen to songs that are written by 7 people, I'm like, whose story is this? Whose emotional content is this? It's written by consensus? So probably makes for a great song, but maybe not for me. So AI is going to be the next version of me going. So it took like 500,000 gallons of hydroelectric power to write this song. Like, is this any good? So, I'm 64 years old. I'm sort of set in my ways. I don't know what that future is going to look like for creatives. I think at the end of the day, once all the content is scraped, and once the scraped content is scraped, and it all implodes on itself, I think there will still be poets and painters and musicians standing on a very small soapbox in the middle of the city square trying to tell people the truth about the world.
Right.
So that's sort of where I figure I'll end up somehow.
I've got two more questions left. And the first one is, out of all the albums you've created, like Husker Du, Sugar, and your solo work, what would you say, which one means the most to you?
Workbook, because, following Husker Du is a pretty tall order. And it's so unlike the first 8 years of how people knew me professionally. I think to do a complete 180 and go very, very, very introspective, more acoustic, longer stories, longer songs, different, the cellos, I think, I put a lot of work into that year and a half of writing and recording, and I'm happy that people responded well. And that was the beginning of the rest of my career, because again, Husker Du is like, how could I top that if it sounded like that? And why would I do that again, having done it so well with that band? So, and I think as time has gone on, Sugar was more power pop, and then there was a couple solo records that were one was all just me doing everything. There was electronic stuff, and then there was a decade of me DJing more than playing guitar. And then I think in 2012 with Silver Age, coming back to something that was closer to those first 15 years. So.
And for my last question, you can answer this in any way.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for any young and up-and-coming musicians and songwriters that are like me and are trying to get somewhere?
You got to just stay at it. You got to love it. You got to work on the craft. You got to put the time in. There's no shortcuts. Mechanically, the one thing when people ask, questions in that range is when you're writing, just catch the ideas. I think one thing that a lot of people get hung up on is if they're writing, and then all of a sudden they're writing and I got to change that word. I'm like, don't worry about that right now. Just keep catching the words as they fall. And after you've got more words than you need, and after you've got something that you can muscle memory, because you put enough down that you know what it looks like and you know how to do it, that's the second part of the writing, is the editing. It's the creative spark is very different from is that the right word, or is that the right note, or is that the right chord? It's like, get the feeling of it from the source as best as possible, and then later you can edit. So that's my advice, is don't get hung up on it when it's coming, just take it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Tim.